So only people that hold Bitcoin in self-custody will be the winners. Everybody that holds fiat investments will get back fiat when they want it the least.
That's a powerful statement. They get back fiat when they need it the least. Josh Mandel's just been on a tear, Saylor, Mstr, the whole thing. That's the only thing anyone's talking about. And I don't think if you kicked it off, because I don't know if this whole thing is your fault or whose fault this is exactly, but someone went on, the Mstr, Saylor's got to change his plan. This is not going to work. And I don't remember if that was like already adding fuel to the fire or if that was kind of what kicked it off. But all I know is that was happening. And then Josh pours a ton of gas on the fire. Yeah. Next thing you know, Mstr is dropping. Everyone's tweeting at him. Give me a bit of a time frame, I guess, if you have any on like how important it is that Saylor sees the message and acknowledges it for what it really is. Because you put out a full direct message I saw on Twitter where you put out a full message. You say, this post is so that you can see it. And it was clear as day. You meant for him to see that post.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm a huge fan of Saylor. Well, let's just start there, right? Yeah. He's a pioneer. He's the Vespucci of modern times. He's out there. He's the explorer out in front of the Bitcoin movement. That being said, from a purely Wall Street perspective, I understood Saylor and strategy as being this amazing company that had created a flywheel, a speculative attack on the US dollar. And he did so by issuing convertible debt, which in many cases was a zero coupon, meaning no obligation, pay any interest. And he went ahead and took that money and bought Bitcoin, and everybody benefited because the debt was convertible at much higher prices. So from a shareholder's perspective, you were being diluted, but you were being diluted at a much higher price, and you were buying Bitcoin today. And that went on for a period of years and years. And then all of a sudden, in the early part of this year, he switched gears and went to these perpetual preferreds, essentially a direct speculative attack on the US bond market, on the money market funds with STRC, the high yield market with STRD. Okay, so now we get into a position where we're going to directly attack Wall Street at its absolute core, which is the bond market. The empire strikes back, as we know. I think Wall Street was great with Saylor when he was doing his convertible bond thing and growing his company, but start attacking their core products, and now it's a different story. So where are we at? Well, now he has about $600 million in obligations, dividends, and interest payments, and the company really doesn't make any money. The software company, I think, is about break even, maybe makes a few bucks, maybe loses a few, I'm not sure. But ultimately, the only way he can meet those fiat obligations, the dividend payments and the interest payments, is to go ahead and sell his common stock. So is that a flywheel, right? I would say no. It's a negative feedback loop if you're a common shareholder. But if you're a common shareholder, you're not benefiting from the purchase of the Bitcoin if he's continually bashing the common stock to make the obligations and then continually bashing the common stock, buy more Bitcoin. Now, all that being said, this is a very short-term discussion we're having, because over the long term, Bitcoin's going to go up and strategy stock's going to go up with it because they own so much. So where do I stand on this? Look, I would like to see him sell a very small amount of Bitcoin, pay the fiat obligations, and not continually sell the common stock. However, Saylor, being the largest shareholder, the largest common shareholder, feels otherwise. He feels, I don't care if my common stock goes down in the short term because I'm a long-term holder and I'm going to benefit from anything that's accretive, right? And right now, with the common stock trading above book value or above MNAV, above a 1 MNAV, it's accretive. The problem is that in the short term, the common shareholders are getting beat, right? They'd be better off holding IBIT than they are holding MSTR if MSTR is going to go down to a 1M now. So
and is he selling the next thing to that same crowd of people as well? If he's like, hey, I'm selling the common stock on you, and I'm going to ask you to buy my next, whatever instrument for debt. Is that is that what's happening as well?
Well, the debt instruments are benefit from this, right? They don't care if he sells the common stock. They just want to get their dividends, right? So the debt instruments could care less. They just want to make sure that the amount of Bitcoin that backs up their debt exists. That's all. I mean, from a debt buyer, you only care about the assets that underlie your debt. You never care about the common shareholders. So that thus is the problem, right? Look, I think the flywheel's broken. I think the way you fix the flywheel is you sell a little bit of Bitcoin and you pay off the dividends. And that way, as long as the CAGR of Bitcoin is greater than the interest rate you're paying or dividends that you're paying applied interest rate, then you win, right? And that's a natural flywheel. Right now, we're stuck in a negative feedback loop. How long that lasts, I'm not sure, but I don't see any way out of it given the current strategy.
Yeah, because the only way would be if Bitcoin's sent tomorrow, it goes to 200K, does this kind of go out the window? Because it's like, well, I guess we're going to outrun everything no matter what.
Well, does it go out the window? No, but its number go up. but I'm not sure the number goes up at the same pace as Bitcoin. So, right, in order for the strategy to really make sense, it has to outperform Bitcoin. And it's hard to outperform Bitcoin when you're constantly selling your common stuff.
Jeez. Yeah, that goes into my next question, which is really just on 21 from Jack Mallers and Tether. You referenced Tether a minute ago or a few minutes ago. Definitely going to be one of the bigger players, partnering with Jack Mallers, one of the top OGs. Either this is the biggest co-op of all time, and Jack doesn't know it. And I've heard people say that before, that Saylor and Jack may not know it, but maybe they're being played. Thoughts on this? And also, is there any scenario where it makes sense to bother playing in these games versus just buying Bitcoin? I mean, is there any scenario where you're like, it can make sense, let's hop in MSTY. There's obviously so many of those that popped up. Well, I feel like I maybe know your answer, but I still want to ask. So
okay, it's a great question. I don't think the upside in the expansion of multiple is great enough to get me to buy a stock as opposed to owning Bitcoin in self-custody. And I'll tell you why. In a financial crisis, as we talked about earlier, what's going to happen? These companies are essentially fiat investments on fiat rails. So when you sell your MicroStrategy, what do you get back? You don't get Bitcoin, you get dollars. So in a crisis, and let's say they need to devalue the US dollar, okay? At the very moment when you want to have Bitcoin, the government is going to buy these companies, right? They're just going to buy them, and you're going to get back fiat dollars when you need them least, right? And you're not going to be able to buy Bitcoin. In a crisis, they're going to shut off the buy button. So you're going to get back dollars, and you're going to want Bitcoin, but you're not going to be able to get it. That's how this will play out. I mean, it's unfortunate, but we have a long history to look at to understand that when governments are in trouble, they act to save themselves, right? And they will say it's in common good to do so. And it probably will be in the common good to do so. So only people that hold Bitcoin in self-custody will be the winners. Everybody that holds fiat investments will get back fiat when they want it the least.
That's a powerful statement. They get back fiat when they need it the least. Yeah, I mean, that's basically getting screwed in a nutshell right there. I mean, wow. Okay, so it's getting me thinking with self-custody. Who are like the top? Someone had referenced Terrence. I've been on a call with like Cosmo and a couple of those guys for self-custody. But for people who are watching, if they're like, okay, you know what, I need to custody at least 5%, 10%, hopefully, as much, hopefully as high as 100. But as much as they're self-custodying, do you have any tips for people to go to, or places, resources, things like that?
Sure, you can reach out to Terrence, but I would recommend everybody start at BTC Sessions, at BTC Sessions. Okay. His account he has a YouTube channel too, where he walks through, I mean, there's got to be 1,000 hours. I don't know. He's got more content on there on self-custody, different wallets, different hardware wallets, different concepts, different ideas. No two people have the same exact idea. If you're talking about larger amounts of money, I would recommend a service like Unchained. They're not a custodial, so it's non-custodial, but they do assist you in setting up multi-sig wallets, and they provide a level of security because they hold one key. It's a 2 or 3 keys. There's no single solution that's right for everybody. For me, I care a lot about chain of custody and the ability, in the uneventful case of me dying, and at some point I will die, that Bitcoin flows down to my family. So I've set up, a methodology that works inside of a trust. But everybody needs to really do what's best for them. I would start at BTC Sessions. There are people like Terrence out there that do an amazing job. They'll talk to you. They'll help you. They do it out of the goodness of their heart. So huge fan.